welcome or welcome back. This is Advice with Albie and I am Albie. Today we're talking about how to get better at interviewing. Right now the job market is crazy and you simply just don't have time to be bad at interviewing. You really don't. So I'm going to give you some tips and tricks that I acquired over the last 10 years of being someone in interviews, being a hiring manager, as well as somebody who has gone from horrific at interviewing to pretty good at it now. I mostly get offers if I'm able to get in to get an interview. And I credit that to the effort that I went into building up interviewing as a skill. It's not something that's taught. It's not something that comes natural to most people. It's sort of something you either figure out or you don't. So hopefully these tips and tricks I'm gonna give you will help you figure it out. So let's get into it. Okay, so tip number one is I want you to start speaking out loud to yourself whenever you can. Specifically for interviewing, I recommend Googling just like the top 10 interview questions for your field and just going through those questions out loud. And the goal here isn't to memorize any kind of answer. The goal is to get comfortable with hearing your own voice, because how often do we actually sit down and speak out loud and listen to ourselves other than when we're nervous? So when you're in an interview, if you're somebody who's shy or introverted or nervous and you're sitting in front of a bunch of strangers, it's really easy to get that nervous shake to your voice. And once you hear it, it's only gonna grow. And so if you can get through some of the basic interview questions, like walk us through your resume, tell us a little bit about yourself, if you can practice saying those out loud, you will be amazed at how much easier it gets when you get through the standard questions at the start and into the meat of the interview, which is about the job that you're applying for, which you probably know the answers to. But if you can get through that first nervous bit by being comfortable with the sound of your own voice, it will take you so far as sounding clear and steady and confident. My favorite time to do this is actually when I'm driving home or stuck in traffic, because then it just looks like you're talking on the phone. But you can do it while you're walking your dog. Put your headphones in, make it look like you're talking to somebody on the phone. Nobody needs to know. Just say it out loud. You don't need to, it's not a public speaking thing. You don't need to do it in front of a bunch of stuffed animals or stand in front of the mirror, but just listen to yourself speak. You will be shocked at the patterns that you notice about your own speech. Things like ums and ahs, awkward pauses. When you start to hear them because you're practicing speaking out loud and you're listening for them, you will notice them, you will fix them, and you will be able to avoid them when you're trying to impress the people you're interviewing with. Okay, so still on the topic of questions and practicing your answers, I want you to have a really, really firm answer to the question that's frequently asked, which is tell us a little bit about yourself. To be very clear, they're talking about you as an employee, and they're talking about pretty much a 30-second elevator pitch, which is a term that's used in networking, but it's applicable for this question, and it's your first pitch to the interviewers as to why you would be a good fit for the job. Okay, so you need to come up with 4 or 5 heavy-hitting things about yourself as an employee that you want to make sure that you bring up. They need to be things that are backed by the jobs that you have on your resume and the experiences that you have. But just a quick run through of who you are, no more than 30 seconds. You would be shocked at how many people think they have this in their head and then cannot get the words out at all in an interview, and it becomes very awkward for everybody because you think it's a simple question, who knows you better than you, but who sits around and says, oh yeah, tell me a little bit about yourself, and just answers it on a regular basis? You don't. But some variation of tell us about yourself is asked in every single interview, so having that 30-second elevator pitch of who you are and why you're a good employee and why you'd be a good fit, it's really crucial, and it's going to help you stand out again because it's going to give you a level of confidence and preparedness that most people honestly don't bring to interviews. Okay, so tip number 3 is to research the company and the position that you're applying for. Not only do you have to have a brief introduction to the company just so that you know who you're talking to, but you need to know the job requisition for the position inside and out. I also strongly urge you to research the actual position if it's anything different than what you're currently doing. So for example, I'm a project manager and I hire other project managers. We get a lot of people from other departments because everybody does a little bit of project management across every department. However, that doesn't mean just because you do it as a function of the job you have now, it doesn't mean that you know everything there is to know about being a project manager. So if I ask you the question, what's the life cycle of a project, and you can't answer, well, that's a pretty basic thing that you should know if you're applying to be a project manager. So Googling what is, the basics of being a project manager, life cycle of a project is going to come up in that Google search. So I'm just saying, take the time, take the extra minute to just make sure that you know the bare basics, because maybe you can't explain it in detail, but you can say, you know, I'm vaguely aware of this, but I could use some more training. That's a perfectly fine answer, especially if you are, again, moving from one position into a totally different title, such as from the analyst to project manager. But just showing that you've done a little bit of research, having just a baseline knowledge of the position and the tenets of the position, it goes a long way. Okay, so tip number 4 is that you need to know your resume inside and out. If you're at an in-person interview, I recommend coming with 2 or 3 copies just to make sure that the people that are interviewing you have them. Most likely they'll already have it and they'll have it printed, but it's just good etiquette to show up with copies for them. But you need to know your resume inside and out. I think it goes without saying. I hope you didn't lie on it, because I'm the kind of person who's gonna go to page 2 or 3 and find a random job you had 5 years ago and ask you a question about it. Because we've had too many people sneak in across some of the companies I've worked for who have lied on their resume. And so I'm very thorough about asking those questions, and I know a lot of interviewers who are very thorough, so you need to make sure that you know. I'm not somebody who believes that you need to tailor a resume to every job. I think that's asking way too much, but every time you do apply, you need to review your resume. You need to be familiar with it. You need to make sure you know how your resume relates to the job you're applying for. Again, especially if it's different and you're trying to make a change from one position to another. So similar to the tell us about yourself 30-second elevator speech, have a 30-second response to walk us through your resume. Now, this is not intended to be a chronological start at the beginning, let's go through every detail. I want you to pick 4 or 5 of the heavy hitting things, like, you know, I did this to start and it led me to this, and I learned this and then decided to go there. Like, very, very high level, very, very basic. But you need to be prepared and ready to do that. And honestly, this is, again, your time to shine. This is your time to kind of brag. This is your 30 seconds to really pitch yourself and your experience. So having it prepared and practiced, again, is only going to make you look better and more confident. Okay, so second to last here, the thing you need to be ready for at the end of the interview is to ask the interviewers questions of your own. I promise you, if you don't prepare them in advance, you're not going to think of anything worthwhile. And this is your chance to get a little bit of extra information. Questions such as, what's the work environment like? What are the working hours like? Is there an opportunity for telework with this position? These are all acceptable. Things you don't want to ask are, how much does this job pay? Or I have this trip planned in November, would I be able to get the time off? Those are questions that are better left for the negotiation if they make you an offer. But right then, I guarantee you, the people in the interview, they haven't even thought that far ahead yet. They're just trying to see if you're even worthwhile making an offer to. So asking about money, asking about PTO, stay away from those things. The only time I'd say it's appropriate to ask about money prior to being made an offer is if they call you for a second or third interview. You don't want to waste your time. You don't want to waste their time if the money is still unknown. It wasn't in the job rec. You have no idea how much they're looking to pay. It's fair at that point to say, hey, before I continue with you guys, can you give me an idea of what the salary is for this? But again, you would ask that to HR when they call you to schedule the second interview. You wouldn't ask that at the end of the interview. It is just best etiquette to not bring it up at all. Okay, and finally, I want to warn you not to get too personal. There should never be an interview where you're being asked questions like, are you married? Do you have children? But it unfortunately does still happen. And if you do get asked those questions, it's a big red flag, and I would seriously consider not accepting any offers from them, because they obviously have issues being professional, because that's illegal in most states to ask questions like that, because it would imply that it's being used to determine if you're a fit for the job, and you're not allowed to discriminate against people for things like marriage or having children. With that said, don't offer the information. Don't offer it. Even if they don't ask it, don't offer it. I have worked at companies in the past where it was a casual remark and then it was used against the person to say, oh, well, she's got like 2 kids under the age of 5. She's probably gonna be out of office all the time, which is illegal. It is not okay. However, it does still happen more frequently than you could ever imagine. So just stay away from any personal topics. It's none of their business. You can have a great interview without ever revealing anything personal. Keep it to you as an employee and nothing more. It's just better safe than sorry. All right, that's all I have for you guys today. Let me know in the comments below if you found this video useful or if you have any questions. And let me know if you have any other tips and tricks that I might have missed. But until the next one, good luck, and I will talk to you later.